Yeah, I think it's like everyone watches week one and then we think we know what's happening and we're like, all right, we know how this season's going to go. And then week two comes and it's like, what? Like, we don't know. We don't know what's even happening in the NFL right now.
I don't know what's happening. I hope you guys do, though. We're going to start with Tua, and the Dolphins lose big at home. Obviously, the biggest news coming from that game is Tua, yet another concussion, another scary hit
Yeah.
taken. Bit unnecessary, didn't need it. That play, he definitely crossed a line to gain that he needed and could have just slid, dove to his left, avoided the hit, lowered his shoulder, and the rest is what we know now. But the Bills do win big. I did call that they were going to win that game, but not in that fashion. They looked great. What are your thoughts on this game? Obviously, the big game.
Yeah. So the Tua thing, obviously not what we want to see. He has a bad history. Apparently not going to retire.
Yeah,
He's going to continue to play. I know that was a big conversation. But I think that injury does overshadow how dominant the Bills were in that game. James Cook had 3 touchdowns in the first half.
let James cook.
Let James cook. He's actually a dog. Um, Tua goes down, which is obviously the big news around the league. But I think that is definitely taking away from how dominant the Bills were in that game against the Dolphins.
Yeah, the Bills are great. I know week one, I thought they kind of had a lull with Arizona, but
Yeah,
apparently Arizona, we'll talk about in a little bit, is legit, and that offense looks good. So I think the Bills look good. Like they beat what now might be a good Cardinals team or a surprise, and they go into Miami on the road and just dominate at all phases of the ball. Like you said, Cook, I mean, had a
the
great game.
receivers do worry me a little bit.
Yeah,
Their
they
receiving core.
they don't have any big names really that I feel like is gonna win one on ones. Like the passing game, we'll see how that looks, but I feel like if they
Yeah,
have 17, like they're gonna win a lot of games. Like that
yeah,
dude just
definitely.
gets the job done. Um,
Yeah,
which them starting 2-0 though is huge. Their remaining schedule, again, like I said in the previous episodes, they have a rough schedule. So going on the road to Miami and winning a big division game is huge and how they won it as well. But yeah, the biggest story for the Bills, I think, offensively, like you said, the receivers are a little bit of a question mark, but not a question mark, is that running back let
yeah,
James Cook 3 touchdowns, 2 on the ground, 1 in the air. My man is playing out of his head right now. So
yeah. It
that,
really felt like when Tua went down, like the game was just over. Like at that point, and nothing really happened in the second half. I guess like the receivers numbers, like I think Josh Allen only threw for 131 yards, but in the second half, it was just run the ball. So
yeah. I mean, the big question mark too is Mike McDaniel's the
yeah, his
that
play calling was
that play
very
calling.
questionable.
They had one good drive, like one really
Yeah,
good drive where they scored on in the first half, but the play calling and then the time management right before half, like they got the ball
yeah,
with like 3 minutes left and they're barely getting in the field goal range with like 20
I
seconds left.
remember. I remember that. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. Rough night for Miami, but we'll
yeah.
we'll
Let's
we'll move on.
move on to Sunday. Sam Darnold is going to win the MVP.
Dude,
That's just my takeaway. Um, I mean, are the Vikings okay?
I guess I don't know. I don't know.
Um,
I don't know what's
the
happening.
49ers, I mean, I think the story of that game obviously was the 4 turnovers
Yeah,
from the 49ers. It's hard to win a football game when you turn the ball over 4 times.
yeah,
But the Vikings defense, I mean, they did give up some like a decent numbers to the 49ers offense, but they had takeaways when they needed them.
yeah.
And then obviously that big play to Justin Jefferson for 97 yards from Sam Darnold. And then that ref, did you see the ref
Dude,
on that
yes,
play?
yes.
Someone like the Bills might need him at receiver.
Dude,
That dude was
that guy
flying.
hit the hip flip.
Yeah, yeah.
He needs to be in our secondary.
That's what I'm saying.
That guy's covering
He
ground.
beat Justin Jefferson to the end zone. That guy's a demon.
They might need to test him.
How you feeling about the
Really.
49ers and Vikings?
Yeah, like you said, the 4 turnovers didn't help. Obviously, on the road, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Brock didn't have a great game overall. Obviously, the Vikings defense, like you said, they looked good. But Purdy throwing almost 40 times coming from week one, he only threw like 20 something, I think. But asking Purdy to throw 40 times on the road, it's not going to be a recipe for
Yeah. It's
success.
not their brand.
No, it's not their bread and butter. But Mason, the guy who's coming in for CMC had another good game on the ground,
Yeah.
which is a good sign, and a big day for Debo. Obviously, they're losing him, but they like you said, they had a decent day offensively, but the biggest stat for them and the biggest stat for the Vikings defense to win off of is money down 2 for 10 on third down for that 49ers offense. That is actually really good from the Vikings. To do that against that offense is very impressive. So we'll see how San Francisco bounces back. I still have them as the favorites kind of in the NFC still. I know the Debo loss is rough, but I still believe in the guys that they have. So
I agree.
Moving on, the best offense maybe of all time. I don't know. Derek
so
Carr,
far through 2 weeks, maybe.
Derek Carr and the Saints roll into Dallas and spank them. They win big, and yeah, I don't even know really what to say about the Saints. I was completely wrong on the Saints. I think I had them winning like 7 games this year in my prediction.
Yeah.
They just walk into Dallas and dominate again. First week they dominate. It was a question mark. They beat Carolina.
Yeah.
Well, they just beat one of the better teams in the NFC fairly easily. What are your thoughts?
It was wild. Like, we were talking about the Cowboys defense shutting down the Browns in week 1. They were like, all right. And then the Saints put up 50 points on the Panthers. All right, it's the Panthers. But then they just go do the same thing to the Cowboys in their house. Alvin Kamara, 4 touchdowns, 115 yards on the ground, another 65 through the air. Derek Carr only completed 11 passes, but he had 243 passing yards.
I mean,
Rashid Shaheed, a deep threat coming out of New Orleans right now.
Yeah, the Saints, I mean, they're for real. It was a bit of a question mark. It might be a little early to say they're for real, but the looks of it, they look like the most complete team in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
Hottest team for sure. I know everyone's talking about Carr and Kamara and, like you said, Shaheed and Olave, but the biggest, I think, surprise, I guess you would say, but one of the two of the things that aren't really talked about right now is the Saints defense is playing out of their mind right now, and probably the best offensive line in football. The defensive statistic that's interesting is 58 rushing yards allowed in the first week and then 68 in the second week. Obviously, it's pretty easy to play the run when you're scoring what seems like on every play. I believe 18 times they've touched the football this year. They've scored on all 18.
Yeah.
It's insane. Obviously, the defense doesn't have to really worry about the rush when you're up by 3 touchdowns in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think the two underrated parts of that team right now that not a lot of people are talking about is the defense, because they did really well against that, Cowboys offense, which has a lot of good talent. And then the offensive line. I mean, they are maybe the best unit in football right now. I don't know.
That was
crazy to look at right now. Just crazy land. I don't know what's happening.
So moving on, the Colts kind of stink.
The Colts suck.
I think everyone that watched football or makes picks on games picked the Colts to run the Packers over without Jordan Love. But the Packers come into that, they had a game plan, and the game plan was to run the ball, obviously with Malik Willis taking over. The Colts couldn't do anything about Josh Jacobs.
No.
I knew they were running. The Colts knew they were running. Everyone in the stadium knew they were running, and they couldn't stop him. Malik Willis comes in, game man. I mean, he handed the ball off really well, I guess you could say. But we talked about how the Packers are going to have to survive this next stretch of 3 games last week. And they started off with a W, which is huge. And Jordan Love might actually come back next week. We don't know the status of him yet, but that was a huge win for the Packers.
Yeah, definitely didn't see this one coming. I think Pat McAfee said this on his show today, which had me crying, but did the Colts not prepare for the run? Like, what was the game plan all week for them?
Yeah.
Like, I want to know, like, what were they talking about in the meetings? Like, they think they're playing the 82 Dolphins with Marino. Like, they're going to run the ball. They have not a rookie, but a guy who hasn't seen much playing time. Obviously, we said this last week. They're going to need to lean on the run game and play defense. Maybe the Colts should have tuned in to our episode last week because they clearly didn't understand what was going on. Obviously, Jacobs and the run game itself had a great game, but even on third down, like 3rd and 8s, they were dropping 8 in the coverage against Willis. Like, no spy, no contain in the pocket, no blitzing, like, against a young quarterback. Like, I don't know. A very strange game from the Colts. Obviously, falling to 0-2 for them is a bit of a surprise. especially when they almost had like a alley oop in this game. They're
Yeah.
playing a loveless, Packers team, but apparently no love, no problem out here in Green Bay.
I mean, shout out to the Packers defense as well, only giving up 10 points
Yeah.
to the Colts. I think Jonathan Taylor had a decent day on the ground, but they were holding up in the red zone and just getting it done.
Yeah. Interesting to see how the Colts look moving forward.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Ravens if I have to.
Flock, baby. We flocking out here.
God damn it, dude.
What are your thoughts on the 0-2 Ravens, Jay?
I have so many thoughts. We could make a whole episode for 2 hours talking about it, but I mean, it comes down to the fourth quarter. I mean, that's been the story. Horrible time management from Harbaugh and the coaches.
Yeah.
This is an interesting stat. I saw this today. This is the Ravens' point margin by quarter since the beginning of last season. First quarter, we're up 62 points on our opponents since the beginning of last season. Second quarter, we're up 80. Third quarter, we're up 52. Fourth quarter, we're negative 4 point margin since the beginning of last season. So that story, that right there tells you, like, we're not finishing games, obviously. And that comes down to coaching, situational football, time management, and just closing games out in the fourth quarter. The Ravens have 10 losses with a 7-point lead or more in the fourth quarter over the last 4 seasons. Which as a fan, it's just like why? Why are, like, everyone knows how to manage the football, or everyone thinks they know how to manage a football game. But it's not looking good for us right now. Starting 0-2 is not what obviously any football team wants, and it doesn't get any easier. We go to the Cowboys next week, then we host the Bills on primetime, and then we go to Cincinnati. So we need to figure it out and figure it out fast.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't watch too much of this game. I kind of had the 1:00 games all on Red Zone and just trying to bounce back and forth between everything. But overall, I'm shocked. Obviously, falling at home to the Gardner Minshew Raiders is interesting. Again, I didn't watch too much of it. You did kind of, cover it. But the stat I want to talk about is a 0-2 stat that I saw on the Pat McAfee show. It says 0-2 teams. Since the NFL playoffs expanded to 14 teams in 2020, so 4 seasons ago, 32 franchises have started the season 0-2, so 32 different times. And only 2 of those teams, of the 32, that's a 6.25%, not good. Cincinnati in 2022 and Houston in last year, 2023, have made the postseason, so only 2. And just 5 of the 32 have finished with a season-winning record.
Yeah.
Not great. Not a great look for
it's not
who
hard.
I had winning the AFC North.
It's really going to be tough to get into the wild card if we don't win the division. So it's starting 0-2, obviously. A lot of season left, but the Raiders was a must-win. I feel like I don't know. I don't want to say must-win week 2, but like that was like a given win for the Ravens at home.
Yeah,
and that's a win that we're going to have to try to get back.
Yeah,
at some point.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll see how it looks moving forward for you guys. But a bit of a shocker, not great start.
Definitely.
Let's move on to
depressing.
So everybody pray for Jay out here. I mean, good Lord, all the Baltimore fans, they're not looking good.
Everyone's calling for Harbaugh's head. Like I like Harbaugh, but I can't defend them this week. It was just bad. Yeah. Like Devontae Adams had an amazing catch on the sideline, like dragging his feet, and then we challenged the play when it was like everyone in the stadium was watching the Jumbotron. Saw it was a catch. We challenge it, lose a timeout. Then instead of a minute left with the game, like a minute left in the game when we want to go kick a field goal, we have 27 seconds, and it's just like a whole, like just bad time management. That's what it was, bad time management.
Yeah.
And you can't give up a 10-point lead to Gardner Minshew.
Can't.
It's just
at home, you can't do it.
Yeah.
Can't have it.
Even on the road, wherever, any place, any field, you don't give up a 10-point lead to Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, that's not great for Baltimore, but let's move on so you don't,
so I don't
break your setup.
Yep.
Let's talk about the surprise Cardinals, I think. Preseason and going into the season, everyone kind of had them in the bottom 5 of their power rankings, but they look really good, putting up 489 total yards of offense. Are the Cardinals for real? Kyler Murray throwing 3 touchdowns. That connection to Harrison, my offensive rookie of the year, looked butter. It looked clicked big time, hauling in 2 touchdowns, 132 yards. I will have a picture up of something I do want to post, but the connection looks great there. Lots of talk last week about Marvin Harrison. He looked a bit off. He looked a bit too much in his head, I think, coming into week 1. He didn't look great route running. He didn't have like explosion off the line, like good footwork. He looked very much like he kind of let the moment get the best of him in week 1, I think, and then letting the missed touchdown wide open last week and hearing all the noise, he probably like settled in a little bit, worked hard this week, and it paid off. I mean, he looked great. That connection looked really good. Defense as well. Another team that kind of the defense is not really talked about, but I mean, they hold, to the good Rams offense to, they hold them to like 10 points or something. I don't even know. They look good. But overall, I mean, the Cardinals, are they for real, Jay?
I think they might be. I mean, you don't, right now after watching them, you don't want to go play the Cardinals. You have the Cardinals on your schedule. You're like, all right, we got to lock in and play a good football game.
Yeah.
But Kyler was the highest graded quarterback from PFF this week, and Marvin Harrison was the number 1 receiver graded for PFF this week. So
yeah, he had a perfect quarterback rating.
Yeah. So I mean, the Cardinals might be for real.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be like a deep maybe NFC playoff threat, but I mean they could give some teams some trouble though. Like you said.
Definitely. Staying in that division, the LA IR Rams,
dude.
They're having some issues. Puka and Kupp both on the IR now. They had the offensive injuries last week. It's just unfortunate, and it's just not looking good for the Rams. I think Sean McVay is a great coach, and he can game plan with the guys that he's got, but it's just going to be hard for Stafford to just put the team on his back. They still get Kyron Williams, who's a workhorse in the backfield, but it's tough,
man. It's the injury bug is tough. Their offensive line's already dealing with that. Now their position guys, they're key guys on the outside. Like that's tough. Obviously, like with that coach, they've always been an offensive led team, even when they've had good players on defense like Aaron Donald and stuff. But they've always leaned on that offense and play calling to kind of get the job done. But man, they look like the Space Jam bench.
It's rough
against the Monstars. Not great.
And then we can move on to Taylor Swift and the refs get another W. Good job. I mean the Chiefs. The Chiefs get another W against the Bengals. Go down to the wire. But it was a good game. The Bengals always play the Chiefs pretty well every time. What are your thoughts on the Bengals Chiefs?
Yeah, apparently every time the Bengals and Chiefs line up, it's going to be the best game maybe of the year. Yeah. I don't know why that is. They come off looking like caca cheeks last week, and then they're going to play the dynasty of the 2020s and play them down to the wire last play. Joe Burrow and the Bengals, like if they played every week like they did the Chiefs, they might be the best team of all time. So maybe they can figure that one out. But everyone's talking about it. Let's talk about it a little bit. The PI call. Was it the right call? Yes. I did see a poll. Pat McAfee tweeted out a poll. Everyone was agreeing that it was the right call. The difference on the poll was it the right timing to make that call? That could be up for debate. In my opinion, he got to the ball early. He got there too early. And in that moment, you cannot leave the game up to the refs. I don't care if you're at home. I don't care if you're up by 20. I don't care what the situation is. You cannot let the game fall into the refs' hands. And I think the defensive back just made a bad play.
It's tough either way because the refs are going to get blamed if he doesn't throw it. So, it's like if he doesn't throw it and it's blatant pass interference, it's like, oh, the refs just ruined the game for the Chiefs. But
it's literally the Saints game, the playoff game from years ago.
Yeah.
If they don't call it, they're awful. If they do call it, they're still awful.
Right.
It's just where you fall as a fan on the side of the flag. If you're a Chiefs fan, you're happy they threw it. If you're a Bengals fan, they all should be fired. So
I agree.
But in my opinion, it was the right call. And in my opinion, I think it was the right time. I don't think you should leave that up to the refs. I think you need to make a better play on the ball, get your hand around, and make a good play.
Yeah.
But